On January 26, 2001, in the hallway of an apartment building in San Francisco, a woman named Diane Whipple was attacked and killed by 2 dogs. The attack was so brutal, so prolonged, and so devastating that it became international news within hours. The dogs were not pit bulls. They were not Rottweilers. They were Presa, and in the aftermath of that single incident, the entire world turned its attention to a breed that most people had never even heard of before. Within months, countries began writing legislation. Bans were implemented. Insurance companies blacklisted the breed, and the Presa Canario went from being a relatively obscure working dog from the Canary Islands to being one of the most feared and misunderstood breeds on the planet. But here's what almost nobody talks about when they discuss that case, or when they talk about banning this breed. The dogs that killed Diane Whipple were not randomly violent animals. They were the product of criminally negligent ownership, zero socialization, and a breeding program run by prisoners specifically to create aggressive guard dogs. The tragedy was not that the Presa Canario is inherently dangerous. The tragedy was that two massively powerful animals were placed in the hands of people who had absolutely no business owning them, and an innocent person paid the price. To understand the Presa Canario, you have to go back to the Canary Islands, a Spanish archipelago off the coast of northwest Africa. The breed's full name is Presa Canario, which translates to Canary Island Cutchdog. And that name tells you almost everything you need to know about what this dog was built to do. For centuries, the people of the Canary Islands raised cattle in rugged volcanic terrain. The cattle were semi-wild, aggressive, and extremely dangerous. Farmers needed a dog that could control these animals, not herd them like a border collie, but physically grip them, hold them, and force them into submission when necessary. They needed a dog that could grab a 1,000-pound bull by the nose or the neck and hang on no matter how violently the bull fought back. They needed power. They needed fearlessness. They needed a jaw that could lock onto living muscle and bone and simply refuse to let go. So they took Mastiff-type dogs that had been brought to the islands by Spanish conquistadors, crossed them with indigenous cattle dogs, and later with bulldogs and other gripping breeds. And over generations of selective breeding, they created the Presa Canario. This was not a pet. This was a working tool designed for one of the most physically demanding and dangerous jobs in agriculture. The Presa Canario is a large and extraordinarily powerful dog. Males typically weigh between 100 and 160 pounds, with some individuals exceeding that range. They stand around 22 to 26 inches at the shoulder, but their physical presence makes them seem much larger because of the sheer mass of muscle and bone packed into that frame. The head is massive and brachycephalic with a broad skull, pronounced cheek muscles, and a jaw structure that provides incredible bite force and grip strength. The neck is thick and heavily muscled, designed to absorb the shock of a bull thrashing violently while the dog maintains its hold. The body is compact and athletic, not the lumbering heaviness of some mastiff breeds, but a kind of coiled explosive power that allows the Presa to move with surprising speed and agility for its size. The coat is short and comes in brindle, fawn, or black, often with a black mask on the face. Traditionally, the ears were cropped short, which gave the breed an even more intimidating appearance, though this practice is now banned in many countries. Everything about the Presa Canario's physicality communicates one thing. This is an animal built for combat-level work. The temperament of the Presa Canario is where the complexity and the controversy really begin. This breed is naturally suspicious of strangers. That is not a flaw. That is a feature. For hundreds of years, the Presa's job was to guard property, protect livestock, and confront threats. A dog that greets every stranger with enthusiasm would have been useless for that work. So the Presa was selectively bred to be discerning, watchful, and inherently wary of unfamiliar people and animals. Within its own family, with people it knows and trusts, the Presa Canario is calm, loyal, and deeply affectionate. Owners consistently describe them as gentle with children in their own household, patient, and surprisingly sensitive to the emotions of their family members. But that loyalty is exclusive. It does not extend automatically to guests, to strangers on the street, or to other dogs. The Presa evaluates every new person and every new situation with a level of skepticism that many modern dog owners find uncomfortable because we are so used to breeds that are friendly and outgoing by default. The Presa is not outgoing. It is a guardian, and it takes that role with absolute seriousness. This brings us to the question that defines the entire conversation around this breed. Is the Presa Canario inherently dangerous? The honest answer is no, but the complete answer is more complicated. The Presa Canario is inherently powerful and inherently protective. In the hands of an experienced owner who understands dominant guardian breeds, who socializes the dog extensively from puppyhood, who provides firm, consistent leadership without cruelty, and who recognizes the enormous responsibility that comes with owning an animal of this capability. The Presa Canario is a stable, reliable, and loyal companion. But in the hands of someone who does not understand what they have, who fails to socialize the dog properly, who uses harsh or abusive training methods, or who actively encourages aggression because they think it makes them look tough, the Presa Canario becomes a lawsuit waiting to happen, or worse. This is not a beginner breed. This is not a breed you buy because it looks cool, or because you want people to be afraid of you. This is a breed that demands respect, knowledge, and an honest assessment of your own capabilities as a handler. The San Francisco case that brought the Presa Canario into the global spotlight was a perfect storm of negligence and ignorance. The dogs involved, named Bane and Hera, were bred by inmates at Pelican Bay State Prison as part of an illegal dog fighting and guard dog operation. They were raised with minimal socialization, kept in isolation, and handled by people with no professional dog training experience. The couple who adopted them, Marjorie Knoller and Robert Noel, were lawyers who had been manipulated into taking the dogs by one of the inmates. By all accounts, they were completely unprepared for what they had taken on. The dogs were massive, poorly socialized, and had already shown signs of aggression before the fatal attack. On the day Diane Whipple was killed, she encountered the dogs in the narrow hallway of her apartment building. Marjorie Knoller was walking both dogs and lost control of them. The attack lasted several minutes. Diane Whipple died from blood loss due to over 77 wounds, covering her entire body. Marjorie Knoller was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and later second-degree murder. The case became a landmark in the legal discussion of owner responsibility for dangerous dog behavior, and the Presa Canario became the poster child for breed-specific legislation worldwide. In the wake of that case, Australia banned the import of Presa Canarios outright. New Zealand classified them as a menacing breed, requiring special conditions for ownership. Several countries in Europe imposed restrictions. Certain cities and counties across the United States added Presa to their dangerous dog lists alongside pit bulls and Rottweilers. Insurance companies began refusing homeowners insurance to anyone who owned one, and the breed's reputation was effectively destroyed in the eyes of the general public. But here is what the data actually shows. Presa Canarios are involved in a tiny fraction of serious dog attacks relative to their population. The reason they make headlines when an incident does occur is because of the severity when things go wrong. A golden retriever bite might send someone to urgent care. A Presa Canario bite can send someone to the ICU or the morgue. The power differential is enormous, but incidents involving well-bred, properly socialized, and responsibly owned Presa Canarios are exceptionally rare. The problem is not the breed. The problem is that the breed attracts a certain type of irresponsible owner who wants a tough-looking dog without understanding what that actually entails. Responsible breeders of Presa Canario today are working hard to restore the breed's reputation and to preserve its working heritage. They conduct temperament testing. They refuse to sell puppies to buyers who cannot demonstrate experience with large guardian breeds. They emphasize early socialization, positive exposure to different environments, and structured training from puppyhood. They are breeding for stable temperaments alongside physical soundness. And they are pushing back against the media narrative that frames the Presa as a monster rather than a misunderstood working dog. Organizations like the United Perro de Presa, Canario Club, and breed advocates worldwide are trying to educate the public about the difference between a well-bred Presa and the poorly bred, badly raised animals that end up in tragic headlines. It is a slow uphill battle because fear and sensationalism always spread faster than nuance and truth. The Presa Canario is not for everyone. It is not even for most people, but for the experienced handler who wants a loyal, protective, and powerful companion, who understands the commitment required, and who approaches ownership with humility and respect for what the dog is capable of. The Presa Canario is an extraordinary animal. It is a living piece of agricultural history. It is a dog that has been doing serious work for hundreds of years and still carries that instinct in every cell of its body. And it is a reminder that power without responsibility is always dangerous. Whether we are talking about dogs or humans, the breed did not ask to be banned. It did not ask to be feared. It simply is what it was bred to be. And the tragedy is that so many people who should never have owned one did, and innocent lives were lost as a result. The lesson of the Presa Canario is not that certain breeds are inherently evil. The lesson is that certain breeds require certain people, and when that match goes wrong, everyone suffers.